I would like to say how much I appreciate, how much I'm honored to be asked to be your guest speaker today and talk about what I have seen in agriculture for the last, not century, but pretty years long. When we go back 70 years, I can remember agriculture, what it was then, and I can remember agriculture, what it was and what it is today. Agriculture in this area is one of the most productive areas of all of Canada. But I can remember as a young person, when I was raised on a farm in what was called then Anderton Township. Of course, Anderton Township no longer exists. That was part of, how to say, our modernization of our municipalities and our history in Ontario. But anyhow, if you had a 55, 60 acre farm, or maybe even a 100 acre farm, you were considered pretty well off. And if you had a 150 acre farm, you were considered, gee, he's a rich neighbor in that. But you know, I can remember also when I think of how we existed, and some people might even say, you know, we were pretty near like a bunch of communists. Can you imagine everybody going to a thrashing bee and helping one another thrash all the grain to the thrashing machine and hauling the grain to the bins, and the women in the neighborhood cooking a dinner, and nobody getting paid excepting just the man who owned the thrashing machine and the big steam engine or oil pull, whatever it was. And then we, how do you say, got rid of some of that in our community and in our society, and we've seen agriculture change. But sometimes I wonder how much of it's changed for the better. But then when we move on through the technology and this, how we marketed our produce and where we bought the supplies we needed for our farm, most of the time we bought that from our local cooperative. I can remember when I was the director of our local cooperative in this area called the Harrow Farmer Cooperative, and it had 800 members. It no longer exists when we talk about what's happened in the last 50 years. And I can remember the United Cooperatives of Ontario, for instance, in southwestern Ontario, when they marketed 80% of all the grain, and when they had a central office with a grain office, marketing office in Chatham, and I remember our manager of our office was a man by the name of Howard Pitts. And Howard Pitts marketed the grain for both the soybean board and the wheat board. I think it was for either half a cent or a cent a bushel. Were we advanced thinkers? Maybe we were, but when I see what's happened to the Ontario Wheat Board, and when I see what's happened to the Ontario Soybean Board, and now they're all supposed to be one board, but having very little to say about their product when they sell their product. We had to sell our product on the open market, our grain, our soybeans, our corn, etc., that type of thing. But then we had a huge feed mill, and we supplied the chicken farmers, the dairy farmers, and the hog farmers. Who were the worst people to pay their bills? Was the chicken farmers, the turkey farmers, and the dairy farmers, etc., because their market went up and down like a yo-yo, and most of the time they were in great difficulty. So what came along about 30-some years ago? Well, actually, for egg marketing, it's 40 years ago. It was called supply management. Now I'm so proud when I drive around Ontario and I see the farmsteads and the farm buildings and everything, the state that they're in. I'm proud that I might have been one that had a little bit just to do with that, but for promoting the kind of programs and that we did. We raised a dairy herd, and we also fed feeder cattle. We were the low end on the dairy route. So if it come a flush time with the milk, those young guys on the dairy road were told, keep your milk at home, feed it to the chicken, feed it to the pigs, dump it in the creek, do whatever you want with it. So why do you think I become such a proponent of supply management and receiving a fair dollar for your product and having some say about what you receive for your product. The hog farmers and the beef farmers. And I remember when we tried to, and I tried my very best to get them into some form of supply management and telling them, look, you're dealing with a perishable product. You don't know where the home is going to be for your product, and you're betting that somebody's going to give you a fair deal. You know what I used to tell them also? I used to tell them, you're the most bullheaded bunch of group that I ever dealt with. And when I see them today still saying we're not being treated fair, you know, in the world market, etc., this type of thing, I wonder to myself, you had an opportunity over the last 50 years, 40 years, you could have been in the same kind of system if you'd have voted for it yourselves, because the legislation was there for you. I'm going to go back to research here and talk about when I was young. We had the first research station I ever knew, and it was one of the first ones in this part of southwestern Ontario, at the Harrow Research Station. They had everything at that. They had fruit, vegetables, they had poultry, they had cattle, they had everything that you needed to be a productive person in this area or in other parts of the world. And just for a second, we can remember what had a big effect on what happened in my lifetime in agriculture. And that was the Harrow soy that was developed at the Harrow Research Station in Harrow, Ontario, and developed and sold all over the world. And that was the real beginning of the soybean industry, right here in southwestern Ontario at Harrow. So when we talk about research, and we're talking about exporting our products, and let's remember it was Agriculture Canada research scientists that done most of the work with poultry, with making our cattle the envy of the world. And when I was your Minister of Agriculture, when we developed the new lentils, when we developed canola, when we developed the new varieties of short season soybeans, when we developed the new varieties of hybrid corn that made us more productive and competitive in the world. People said I was a good Minister of Agriculture. I wouldn't have been good at anything if it hadn't been for people like the civil servants that I had. And I'm going to go back again to research. They were really dedicated researchers. And today, what's happening today when we come up to modern times? What are the farm organizations and everybody? We want more research. Let's not forget what happened in Agriculture Canada when those smart people got control, those smart economic people. They got rid of 350 scientists in Agriculture Canada from all over the world. And we had one of the best research stations in the world when we talk about selling our system, our industry, agriculture. When we talk about selling it, our headquarters in Ottawa. I could bring anybody, like I brought Mikhail Gorbachev from the Soviet Union, and we could show him everything. We didn't have to go outside of the capital. We could show him everything with seed research and lentil research, livestock research, poultry research, swine research, everything was right there. But what they do, they cut that down, moved it out of central Canada. So when we're selling our product, and this is one of the things we keep stressing today, we're selling our product, but also in 50 years, we had put in a position called, or an organization called Canagrex, and it was there to sell Agriculture Canada around the world and sell what we had. And this, as soon as the government changed, they got rid of Canagrex, just like that. And what are they yelling for now? We got to be more. We got to be selling. We got to be more on exports. So when we had something that was over 30 some years ago, we had that kind of an organization that was there to sell all our agriculture products around the world, and pretty near every other organization has that. So, you know, when we talk about diversification, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I can remember driving a tractor as a young man and driving it at night, and we didn't even have what you'd call skidoo suits at that time, old leather coats and mitts and toe caps, etc. And one of the things that I think has made agriculture so productive is the technology that we've used in many different ways, but the most important technology has been air-conditioned and temperature-controlled cabs, where you don't eat all that dust and that, and you can have temperature control no matter how hard that wind blows or how damp it gets or how cold it gets outside. You're going to still be comfortable inside. You're not going to be half frozen to death when you're doing that. So, and I can remember running a combine, and I can remember a combine that I think it was 4.5 foot cut, and I rode on the seat to bag the grain. And in those days, a lot of the farmers' fields had furrows and that in them, and you'd bounce over it, and you were tying the bag at the same time. So I went from a 4.5 foot. I remember we went from the 4.5 foot combine. We went to a 12 foot 21A Massey Harris. What a step forward that was, and when you could do 30 some acres in a day and one person, but you still had to swallow all that dust in that because you didn't have the cab and that on with the temperature controls and everything. And when I see the farmers today in this modern technology and that, but I also remember how much I paid for it when the 12 foot combine, and I believe wheat was about $2.60 a bushel at that time, but the combine was less than, it was $3,695 and a few cents, etc. for the combine delivered, but it wasn't as modern as everything as you have today. And I just want to finish by talking a little bit about the World Trade Organization. When we talk about sovereignty in our country, let's just consider who makes the decisions and who's been trying to make the decision to destroy what we built. For what? Since the Uruguay round, where no political party of any stripe, no farm organization of any stripe, asked that they start dismantling what we built. And what I'm talking about that, I'm talking about supply management and that for our industry. Now, I just wish the Chamber of Commerce for Chatham-Kent the best in the coming year, and may, how to say, there's an old Irish saying, we can say, may the little people be kind to you, and if those little leprechauns are helping you, you won't fail at all in the spring or the fall. So God be with you. Thank you.